I haven't done an exhibition in New York for nearly 9 years now, which seems outrageous because I love New York more than anywhere else, really. It still gives me an excitement that nowhere else in the world quite gives me. So I put together a show of 9 new paintings that have taken me 2 years to make. There is a lot to see in the paintings. They're quite intense, but hopefully emotionally quite a bit of a roller coaster ride as well. You're meant to find them funny, but also rather tragic, and they can be quite pretty, some of them, but there's definitely ugly, seedy sides to them. So I've tried to create a bit of a filmic flow throughout the exhibition, keep people entertained for as long as possible. The starting point for most of the paintings in the show is an idea or a feeling, so they can be quite abstract initially. Then I go out hunting for drawings, in this case, old master drawings, some contemporary, and I will put combinations of different drawings together to try and build up an image of a portrait that I want. And then I will sometimes project those images, after distorting them quite a bit, onto the canvas or panel that I'm painting on. And on top of that, I start to add oil paint, which is colour. I always like to use the analogy of the drawing being the bones, and then the oil paint, the colour and the form and the texture that I start to add onto these lines is the flesh. So it's really putting flesh onto the bones of the painting. I think I'll always be an appropriation artist. That conversation with art history and with the talents and minds of other artists and other cultures is very much what I'm trying to comment on. I like to paint and I like to paint drawing. But now I think the paintings feel much more free. There's a greater speed with them, literally in the way the brush marks look like they're more energetic. There's almost as if they're cartoon versions of paintings. One big influence has been Mannerist painting from Italy and Northern Europe, both at the beginning of the 17th century and the end of the 18th century. The distortions and posturing of Mannerist painting has been very important to me. Also, Japanese floating world prints have been very important. They are almost Mannerist in their own right. The graphic black lines that the woodblock prints that they were creating has been very influential on these new paintings. The paintings as a whole rely very much upon there being differences of texture in them. So the figure is very often very highly worked, a lot of detail to try and pull the eye in. Light and dark chiaroscuro is very important to create modelling and shape this three-dimensional image. But what happens in the background is usually quite secondary in a funny sense, that I don't want to specifically say where this figure is, what century they're even living in. I like this almost otherworldly, out of space background. So I want to psychologically make the ground very blank and mysterious in order to concentrate your sensibilities on studying what's happening on the figure itself. My paintings always refer to other artists' work, and whether that artist was living in the 16th century in the case of Lucas van Leyden, or whether they were living in the 19th century in the case of Caspar David Friedrich, or whether they were living in the 20th century or in between, does matter, because sensibilities do change, cultures change. But what I'm really getting at often is the fact that people in their core don't change.